and anyway, this is my 2 cents.
Thank you. I think that's really powerful. And that's a great insight. I actually like wrote that down for yourself because it's true. It's, I always kind of approach things, well, would I regret if I didn't do this, and I think that kind of goes along the same lines of what are the pain, what are you going to feel pain wise? How are you going to be pained if you don't do these activities? And guys, it doesn't take, you don't have to sit in front of a computer for 3 hours or whatever it is to lead gen or anything like that. It's just about taking action. If all you can muster is 30 minutes a day, absolutely make it count, right? But when you're doing it, be present, make sure that you are there and just get it done. And sometimes I always say, like, play to your strengths. Where can you find those little pockets of time that will allow you to better yourself, better your career, and when can you make those phone calls and when can you connect with people? And if all you can do is send an email and say, hey, I'm thinking about you, that's awesome. So anyway, find little pockets, make sure that you are, just calendaring it, time blocking. I know time blocking is really hard to perfect. But as you get going with it, that's when you're going to say, okay, what is working, what is not? What am I able to stick to and what am I not able to stick to? Because those points of, I'm not able to stick to these things, that's okay. Let's revamp that. Let's, this is a very ever-changing business. Anybody else have anything to share? Cool. Okay. So today we're going to cover what a negotiation is and the 3 P's of negotiation, which is prepare, present, and position, and the tips for successful negotiations. People don't realize it, but we are quite literally negotiating at every single moment of our day. We're negotiating with ourselves. We're negotiating with our kids. I don't have kids, but I assume everybody negotiates with their kids. And you're negotiating with your partner, whatever it is, you are constantly negotiating. So a lot of people get intimidated by this big term of negotiation, but it's really just about making sure that, what's fair. And we'll kind of go through the Y4C2Ts and what that means, win-win or no deal. But basically, by the end of the day, we're going to be able to explain negotiation of offers. What does that mean? What does that look like? How can you implement this in everything that you do? When you're negotiating with sellers on, your fees or whatever that looks like, we'll talk about that. And then I think that's kind of about it. Has anyone had any struggles with negotiations in the last couple of weeks or, since being in real estate? I know that's a really broad question. Nobody has anything? Mike, you must have something.
Hi, so I'm Lindsay White. I've been an agent for 8 years. And this class is the most important to me because even 8 years in, I still struggle with negotiation. I like everybody to be happy, and I try to avoid conflict at all costs. So when it comes to negotiations, it's tough because I know my seller point of view, or if I'm working with the buyer, I know the buyer's point of view, and we want what we want, and the other side wants what they want. So
of course,
finding the happy medium that's going to make everybody happy, and it doesn't always. That's the hard part. Someone wants a new furnace and they're not willing to move forward on the deal if they don't get the new furnace. And I mean, not as much in the last 2 years, but in general.
Yeah, I was telling somebody else today that just in the last 2 years, really negotiations have kind of like ceased completely. And that's been something, when I've taught other real estate agents from their infancy of real estate, and they're like, oh, we got a counteroffer. What does that mean? And I was like, oh, no, that's good. Like, these are, you're continuing that conversation. That's all that it is, guys, is that we are just continuing the conversation. What does this look like? And how are we going to get that win-win or no deal? And there are certainly going to be times where, there's going to be outlandish things. There is just no compromise with anything. But yeah, I mean, it's just having that conversation. Mike, did you have something?
I think one of the most important things that we should always remember, and I think you've emphasized this a couple of times, is no deal is exactly the same, right? And we're always learning, and everything changes. Every single deal comes in. Like Lindsay said, maybe somebody needs a new furnace, maybe the house needs an update. And the next time around, it might not be a furnace that's an issue. It might be the windows, but win-win is so important. And one of the things that we always want to do as agents is never let it get personal for us. We always want to stay professional, always be at the highest level, because you have so many times that so many people get invested in these things and they become attached to their buyers or attached to their sellers, and they want really to almost fight and argue for them. It's a great thing to fight and to be, your true fiduciary responsibility and recognize that. But if you let it get emotional, it gets emotional. And, we can't allow that to happen as agents. Doing the best for our clients is to stay at a higher level and essentially take the high road.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Remaining, you are hired, as a buyer or a seller's agent. Like, real estate as a whole, buying and selling real estate is a very emotional thing for people. It's one of the hardest things people will ever do. And generally we're dealing with people's largest investments of their lives, right? So it's such an important thing to acknowledge where they're coming from and why everyone is feeling the way that they're feeling. And we're going to go through this through the Y4 C2Ts. But negotiating is not something to be avoided or feared. It's an everyday part of life. And guys, I cannot stress this to you enough. I remember being in high school or something and like going to an improv class, and they were like, it's just talking, it's just having a conversation. You're improvising every single day. And it's the same exact thing. We are negotiating everything through every part of our days and every part of our lives. So don't fear it, lean into the uncomfortableness that it is. And so can we go to the next slide, Sierra?
There are real estate companies, real estate teams actually that do improv as an exercise.
Yeah.
In terms of
how
to
I
work
didn't know
in
that.
negotiations.
That's amazing.
Yeah. We should implement that here.
I was going to say, I think that's huge. Who does scripting? Who has a script partner? Is nobody? Guys, come on. We have to. Yeah. Michael and I we script practice. We have conversations. Nobody else.
As Christiana knows, I hate the word scripting. I think it's not a good description of it because it adds a little fear to it. I have a script partner, Christiana, and Brian and I script every Tuesday morning. But if you have this fear of scripting, one of the things that you can do, and people laugh at me for doing this, I actually do it with myself in the car on my ride home. So, or on my ride to an appointment. Run through those conversations by yourself.
Yeah. And this kind of comes full circle, right? Like for people who are lacking confidence, and it's just getting with other agents, because we all start from somewhere, guys. Like, we all start from the ground up, and none of us know what we're doing when we're getting into this. So that's the beauty of what I have found that is Keller Williams, is that like everyone, especially like in our market center, has been so helpful. And just, if you ask those questions, nobody's going to say, no, I'm not going to give you the answer to these. We have such a wealth of information just in this Ignite class, in your market centers. There's so much information out there for people to just ask those questions, be vulnerable with people. And the more honest you can be with people, the better your outcome is going to be, because we're not going to ever be perfect. But practicing those things, hearing what other people are going through and what they've dealt with, because it's not all going to be perfect and you're going to have those hard times, but just making sure that you have people in your market center, in other market centers, in other, whoever it is, to really help you through those times. Anybody else?
So one of the things, I used to have a script partner and script practice. I have kind of gotten away from it, and I really, I'm going to admit, I need to get back to it. But one of the things that one of my mentors had said is, the thing with script practicing, it's not so that you sound like a robot and can just regurgitate a script. It's so that you internalize the words and make them your own, so that when you're in a situation where you might be a little uncomfortable, the ideas and the knowledge comes forward from the experience of having said it so many times in script practice.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And the more you talk about the things that you're going to be encountering, and that's exactly what scripting or having conversations is, right? Like, we all day long, when we are improvising and having conversations with people, we're just regurgitating the same things we're hearing every single day, right? And this is, real estate is a language. We are not born with the inherent knowledge of how to buy or sell real estate. You know, this is a skill. So it's one of those things that if you hate it, the more you want to do it, or the more you hate it, the more you should do it, because that's where you're going to find the value with other people. And again, when I'm scripting with Mike Hickey, I don't know what he's dealing with on a daily basis. He doesn't know what I'm dealing with on a daily basis, but together we can come together and say, this is what we encountered, and this is how we handled it. And then you get that aha of, oh, wow, that's actually really good. I'm going to use that. And the more you do it, the less it'll feel awkward, and the less it will feel, you know, those role playing type things can feel really weird and awkward. But that's probably how you feel as a real estate agent when you first start out anyways, right? So if you are able to just be in a comfortable space with other people to be able to do that and express those things, the better off you're going to be, you know, 5 minutes down the road when somebody asks you the same questions that came up during role play. All right, so let's chat about the Y4C2Ts. So this is a big Keller situation. When I joined Keller Williams, I was like, what the heck is this? But this is actually so good because it's win-win or no deal. Integrity, do the right thing even when it's hard. And that's a really big part of what we do. The customers are always coming first. And you are that fiduciary for your clients, and you're going to be working in their best interest, even when it may not always necessarily suit you. Commitment in all things. That means to your calendar, guys. This means to yourself. This means to your client. This means to your business. Make sure that you are finding those non-negotiables in the morning and set yourself up for success. Your future self will always thank you. You know, I always say, anytime I don't want to do something and it's just like, I will thank myself tomorrow for doing these things, right? So even if you get 15 minutes of lead gen in, 30 minutes, that is going to turn around, and something is better than nothing. Consistency over integrity, or excuse me, consistency over what is intensity? That's what it is. Communication, seek first to understand, lead with curiosity. If there is something that you don't quite understand, ask questions. If you are in a situation where somebody asks you a question, ask them more questions to kind of fully wrap your head around kind of what is going on. Creativity, ideas before results. We are always, especially during the pandemic, guys, we were getting really creative with our offers. We were getting really creative with how we got our offers won. And this is going to go throughout your entire businesses. So make sure that whatever you are doing is allowing yourself to create an environment for yourself to allow those creative juices to flow. And that will allow you to get excited about what you're doing. Teamwork. We were just talking about this. Teamwork. Together, everyone achieves more. And this could not be more true. If you're an independent agent, if you are on a team, it doesn't matter. Making sure that you have a few people in your daily lives that you're surrounding yourself that can help you in whatever you are doing. We can't do this alone, right? Like we just can't. I was telling somebody like Sierra is my executive assistant, and she's like, she keeps me together, at all times. And it's really that teamwork about like who does what best. And you're not going to be the best at everything. You're just not. Trust starts with honesty, making sure that you are honest with yourself and that you trust yourself, guys. Like this is the more that you keep promises to yourself, you are going to build that trust within yourself to give you that confidence to go out and slay whatever you're going to be doing for the day. Creating that trust starts with yourself. And then once you start to trust yourself, you'll be more confident, and then you'll be able to relate that to your clients. And then making sure that you are honest with everyone that you're working with as well. The honest and the more vulnerable you can be with people, the more of a real human you are and less robot-y. Equity, opportunities for all, and that is real estate, right? Like we can build equity in all things, but we could also build it within our lives. And success results through people. So we are talking with people every single day. We are getting in communication with people. We're getting into a relationship with people every single day. And, we are talking with people. So make sure that you are scripting with your partners, your script partners, your role play partners, your conversation partners, making sure that you're committing to these things. And, this will really start your day with success. Does anyone have anything for that? Any ahas, any challenges? Cool. In the last Ignite session, you ended with learning with offers. When your offer is accepted, it moves through the process towards close. And what is in between there? That's negotiations. What are we working through with negotiations? Usually it's not just that simple though, right? Like if we are going through, if you have a cash offer, no contingencies, you don't really have anything to negotiate, but you do. What are you negotiating through there? You're probably negotiating the closing date. You're probably negotiating, when the contract is accepted. What else are you negotiating through? What are some possible things that you're negotiating throughout an entire transaction? What are the obvious ones?
Terms, financing,
Price of the house.
Yep. What else?
Repairs that you might want them to make.
Yeah. What else?
Contingencies, if you want to, like if you're selling and you're looking to stay before you buy, like to see if you could, rent it out for like a month or so before you move in.
Yeah. What else?
Sometimes things like furniture, either the seller doesn't want to have to move it, or the buyer really wants this one particular cabinet or something.
Yeah.
I actually had a deal where the seller was moving out of state and didn't want to take the dogs. So he negotiated the dog staying with the house.
Yeah. Yeah. The amount of times I've written cats into contracts is actually kind of crazy. What else?
I've never done
guys?
that. That's crazy.
Really?
I couldn't leave my dog behind. Not even for a week.
Dogs, no. Somebody said cats don't move well. I'm not a cat owner, but yeah, I
Me
can
neither.
definitely see that. Yeah.
That's a Brian Armstrong thing. We can ask him. He's a big cat guy.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Can confirm they do not move well.
They don't. Yeah, but what happens before we even get to the table, guys? Like, we are talking with people and we are negotiating throughout that entire process. You should never be going through the whole process of spending money on lead gen. Your time is money. So even if you're not physically spending money, you are paying for that with your time. That is something that you can never get back. So you are spending all of this time, all of this money, all of these resources to get these clients. This deal should never fall apart because you are not able to adequately negotiate, right? So make sure that you are just thinking about this from the very first step of the process. What happens? How do you get in relationship with those people? You've been the part of your SOI, you're lead genning in some sort of way. You have spent so much time in order, and you've showed houses, you've spent gas money, you've spent all of these things. You should be really making sure that you are, creating that win-win or no deal, because no deal is no good. We're going to really focus on the negotiation skills so you can close with confidence. And every single transaction, guys, is going to present opportunities for learning. Every day you're going to be learning something new. And so negotiating for your clients is going to be huge. So not only we're negotiating with ourselves about like whether or not we should get out of bed in the morning when it's really gross outside, but we're also negotiating with our clients. We're negotiating with other agents. We're negotiating with sellers. We're negotiating commission. We're negotiating all of these things. We are negotiation humans, and that's really what we are doing. Has anybody had any sort of situation where they've had a really hard negotiation or they've had to negotiate their commission? No one's had to negotiate their commission.
Well, at listing appointments, yeah, that's something that comes up quite a bit, especially in the last couple of years. There's 4% agencies out there, and you want to win the listing. So it comes down to, well, you can there's scripts for it, but you can go with the 4% agency, or you can go with someone who's actually going to do what they say they're going to do and market your property and get you the most exposure.
Yeah. How do we handle that? If somebody says, can you list my house for 4%? How do you handle that?
Well, this is what I do. I normally tell them that if they were going to work, if they were going to work for me, and I would ask them for a discount, either were willing to give me a discount. Also, I know this is the one that I normally use is that. So if what you're asking me is that if I give you a discount, I give you half of my time and not be able to perform at 100%. Is that what you're asking me?
That's a good one. I always like to say that I'd probably be your last choice if I rolled over so quickly and gave you a lower commission. You'd probably not want someone like me negotiating on your behalf.
Yeah. Does anybody, when somebody asks, will you list my house for 4%? And I always say, what do you expect from a real estate agent? And everybody gets like, scratches their head and they're like, what are you talking about? You're going to sell my house, right? But what am I going to do? Let's talk about that. What are the things that you do and where is your value? And that's exactly it, is that if you want a discount brokerage, you're going to get discount results. Nobody wants that, right? Like everybody wants the highest, for their house, and you're getting a deal.
I think that has to do a lot with your presentation. If your presentation looks, not as professional. You might
Mhm.
have that, that question, asked, that question to be more, as a liability than anything else. But if you have a solid presentation, most likely they just, oh, okay. I have a question for you guys. I'm in the middle of negotiating a piece of land. Um, the piece of land is worth about 200,000. And this guy wants to offer like $50,000 less. And I'm negotiating both sides of the transaction. How could I, how do I handle that?
That's a good one. Who are you representing?
I'm representing both the seller and the buyer.
Okay. Who's got an objection handler for that?
Well, it's a cash offer. It's a complicated thing, but the bowl, the situation is that he has X amount of dollars in cash, and he wants to offer that. And my
Mhm.
seller is an old lady. She has been paid for. She's not in a hurry. But land is very hard to sell, especially when utilities are not in the property. And anyway, I just wanted to see if you guys had any input.
Yeah, who's got what?
One of the hardest things for us, Rolando, is that in the state of Vermont, it's illegal for us to represent both. So we don't come across this situation very often. We have to, our fiduciary responsibility has to lie with one or the other. We have to either represent the buyer or the seller. However, in your situation, the way I would handle it is I would just be upfront with both. Remain unemotional about it, disconnect yourself from it, and just present the offers. And explain each person's side of it. I think your explanation was really good, based on the fact that, he wants to come in at $50,000 less because there's nothing on the property there. Utilities there. They're probably going to have to, I don't know what the town is that you're in, but my explanation would be, they're probably going to have to start with a septic system, hiring an engineer, bringing power to the property, finding water, all those type of things. So this particular buyer believes that it's only worth X amount of dollars. And then when you hear back from the other side, bring it back to the buyer. But for sure, keep your emotions at this level, never get higher or lower, never choose sides. You always, in your situation, you always just have to be the middleman delivering the message.
Normally, I don't represent both. My partner represents one or the other. It's so hard to be, to work for both at the same time. And so normally I don't do it. This is the only time. And the reason I'm doing it is because he's on vacation and he's not going to be back until the middle of October. So, and he called me and, he saw my sign, he called me. And so I'm in the middle of that. But thank you for the input. That's what I was thinking, just present the offer and see where it lays. And also I'm going to mention that the market is not getting better if it's taking a decline. So, and then I just leave it at that.
I think that's huge, actually, making sure that the seller understands that, we don't have a crystal ball. However, all the predictions are the market is going to, soften and go down. If anything, it's not going back up. It's definitely not getting better.
Yeah, that's where I experience out here on the West. I'm here on the West Coast. And in the area where I live, prices have not gone down, but definitely it's taking longer to sell. And and I see people now being kind of like, oh, my house is not worth $1 million more than I thought it was, that kind of
Mhm.
thing. They're realizing that, or they listen to stuff on the, on the TV, and everybody's now worried about, oh my God, we're going to go into such a deep depression, you know, and I've been in this business long enough that I see up and down. Um, I never seen like like in the 90s, going in the deep end. But and I don't think we're gonna go that. We're gonna go down, but I don't think it's gonna go to a point where everybody's gonna lose their homes and like we had in 1990. I think there's been responsibility on the government level that that's not gonna happen. But anyway, who has a crystal ball?
Yeah, I think all of this is really good because it's really just about staying level-headed and logical throughout. And that's why, asking more questions, leading with curiosity. If somebody feels really strongly about something, ask them more questions, dive deeper into why they might be thinking this way, why they feel that they want it for this price, that sort of thing. So then you can present a really clear idea and picture to the other side. It's really hard to negotiate with logic, but you have to kind of break down what is truly logic. So, a lot of people are like, I feel that this piece of land is only worth X amount. That is an emotion, right? What brings you to that conclusion? Just leading with curiosity, continue to ask those questions, get a really clear idea. Because usually, guys, when you ask more questions, the more questions you ask, the more you're going to get into what people are really feeling and really thinking. And that's where your job as an agent, as especially somebody who's dual representing or anybody who's representing anybody, ask more questions, dig deep. When you're in a seller's, when you're in a seller consultation, ask those questions. What does this mean to you? So then you can present it with a logical point of view for the other side. Anyone else? All right, we can go to the next slide. Any ahas oh, perfect, ahas. Let's hear from a few of you what ahas you have so far. Crickets? Anybody?
Okay, I'll
One of
go.
mine is always, I was going to say, Roland, I'll go first because this is about you. One of the things I love about teaching these classes and being involved in them is having agents from all over the country. I didn't realize we had people from the West Coast. I have no idea what time it is there right now. It is probably almost 7 a.m.
It's early.
Yeah, it's early for you, but it's so great to have other people from other markets so that we, sort of collaborate. And we need more of you guys to collaborate and contribute. So, like I said, where Christiana and I are from, and Sierra and Melissa, we don't have that option to be dual agency. And one of the things that came up in the chat that Laura Gould actually wrote in the chat, one of our agents here in the Vermont office said, when you're working with dual agency, you really have to think about it as like you're dealing with your two children. So you have two children and you're negotiating on each side of those two children. You love each of them equally, right? But you want to make sure that they both get what they need out of the deal, out of your negotiations with them. And I thought that was great advice, Laura. So thank you for adding that to the chat.
Yeah.
Actually, that was great. Thank you for sharing that, because it is, I have two kids, and and right now I have two adults that they're kids. They want everything I want, and they don't see the the advantages of it. And anyway, but thank you so much for that. I'm gonna use that as strategy.
No, I mean, I think that's really good because what Laura said, I mean, again, I don't have kids. I have nieces and nephews, and I get them on the weekends sometimes. And I know my entire day is going to be the hardest negotiations ever because they're 4 years old and under. And nothing is worse than negotiating with a 4-year-old, right? So that's kind of how you have to approach every single situation, is that they're going to be really emotional about something. They're going to feel, you know, whatever that is, but that's exactly it. I think that's huge, Laura. Thanks for sharing that. Anybody else?
When when negotiating with a 4-year-old, I would use ice cream. So
Yeah. Can I
I just have
give
a
ice cream
question.
to my clients?
I
Yeah.
just have a question for Michael. Is that dual agency rule a Keller Williams rule, or is that specific to your market center,
It's state specific.
state
So
specific?
each state will have, yeah, it's state specific. So in the state of Vermont, we are not allowed to practice dual agency. We can only represent one or the other. And you have a fiduciary responsibility to either the seller or the buyer, but you cannot have a fiduciary responsibility to both.
Which it makes
Anybody?
sense to me. It,
Yeah.
here we walk a thin line between that because the liability is really high. So normally that's why I don't try to back end both all the my transaction, and that's why I have a partner that if we go into that situation, he would handle one or the other because
Yeah.
of the liability part of it. And here, since we deal with a lot of, high price homes, that sometimes is it's scary.
Yeah, it can get really tricky here as well. And you know, so in the state of Vermont, you have to obviously have a signed disclosure stating that everyone acknowledges, you know, the relationship, whether you're a customer or a client, how you become a client, and who your responsibility for representation lies, for whom it lies to. So anyway, definitely dig into your state rules. But yeah, I mean, and some people just morally don't like to represent both for those exact reasons, is that you know so much about the other party. Like if you're doing buyer consults or seller consults, you're getting to know people's really intimate details about their financial history and their lives, right? So it's really important that in order to, you know, and again, this is going to be state specific. I can only speak to Vermont rules, but again, in people who in states where they are able to practice dual agency or represent both sides, it's important to figure out, you know, what feels good to you, because it, you know, dual agency may not feel good to you, and that's okay too. All right, we can go to the next slide. So let's talk about the 3 Ps of negotiation. So we've talked about what negotiation is, who we negotiate with on a daily basis, and we can go to the next slide. So the 3 P's approach to negotiation is prepare, present, and position. Negotiation is a skill that anyone can learn and can be perfected with experience. And this is where I'm going to hound everybody on role playing, conversation having, all of those things, because it's really important to practice these skills. You practice, you know, everything every single day. Whatever you do, you haven't gotten to this place because you didn't practice it. Even as in our infancy, we are practicing things. We're practicing our roles as humans. You have to practice your job. Practice makes perfect. So then the best practice you can follow is the 3 Ps of negotiation. Prepare. Preparation is key to building confidence. So the more you know, the more research you do, the better you get. And that's where your confidence comes from. And that comes from creating trust within yourself, right? So if you are showing up for yourself every single day, whether it's 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, or 3 hours, showing up and being consistent with yourself will give you more confidence in yourself and what you're doing every single day. Then we're going to move into the negotiation process by presenting your offer. So this is a really big situation. We're not just talking about a purchase and sales contract or an offer to buy a house. We are presenting the offer to sell a house, to represent yourself or represent these clients. You are presenting the offer of, I would love to represent you in the sale or the buying process of this transaction, right? And then position, move both parties closer until you have a full agreement. So this is just going to be a conversation over and over and over again about what your value is, why you're presenting this. And the more you practice this, the more you prepare, the better the position you're going to be until you have an agreement. The first P, prepare. Yep, we're on prepare. Details the actions and steps that we'll take before entering a negotiation. So what's the goal of preparing for this situation? You're going to have a clear goal of reaching a win-win agreement, right? We want everybody to feel like they're getting a deal. And that's really what we're focusing on. And which you sign a purchase and sales agreement where the buyer and the seller are both happy with the outcome. They both sign off on it. You're now under contract. Know your client, and really remain, basically when you have those consultations with people, you want to continue to teach them and kind of reiterate to them, what were their initial goals? You know, if you have a conversation with a buyer and, you know, they say, these are my goals, bring that back into the conversation. Things are going to change constantly, but that's what makes you the true professional, is making sure that you are consistent with your clients, making sure everyone's on the same page. And that's where continuing to lead with curiosity is going to be really huge in what you're doing every single day. And that's, again, knowing your client. Make sure you fully understand your client's goals. Continue to leave with curiosity. Ask those questions. Learn the areas in which they are willing to negotiate and where they will stand firm. So there are people who, you know, find out what their non-negotiables are. If it's like, absolutely not, I'm not buying this house if it doesn't have a washer and dryer. I'm not buying this house if, you know, the property boundary lines or that's, you know, whatever it is, make sure you're very clear on what those non-negotiables are for your people. And then think ahead, anticipate whether the party intends to, oh no. Is everyone here still?
Yeah.
Oh, I just completely lost everything.
We still hear you.
Yeah, okay.
You're
That's
still
can you
good.
see me?
I still hear you. I still hear you, see you, and I still see the
Okay.
PowerPoint.
I wonder if it was Sierra. I bet it was Sierra. Okay. I wonder if she lost. Our internet's really wonky right now. Anyway, think ahead, anticipate whether what the other party intends to get out of this negotiation. And that's where, you know, if you're representing a buyer and you're going to the seller's agent, it's important to know, you know, what is important to those sellers. Is it price? Or is it they're going through a really emotional time? Like, ask those questions, continue to have conversations with other people within the industry and specifically those sellers agents or buyers agents. I wonder if we can get our slides back up. Hang on. Stand by.
Are you not seeing them, Christiana? Because we see them on the
No,
screen, or at least
you
I do.
can see them.
Yep.
Yeah, can everyone see
we can see
the
them.
slides still? Okay, they're not on my side. Well, I'm just going to bring them up for myself.
We see
Okay, there it is.
everything. I see the your page 18.
It's, yeah, so it's not my page.
Oh,
On
okay.
my, yeah, because Sierra's running the PowerPoint, so I can't see any of that, so that's weird.
Do you want me to come and try and get it back up for you?
Can you?
Yeah,
Can
I'll be
we
right
take
over.
let's take a
Here,
10-minute
let me
break,
try
guys.
first.
Oh yeah, Mike, why
Okay.
Oh,
don't
there
you
we
do
go.
it?
That's a good idea. Yeah, but that's a good idea.
Why don't
Let's
we-
take a 10-minute break and we'll get
Let's take a
Christiana's
10-minute
computer
break.
back working.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Cool.
Jason, you're pretty quiet today. Melissa, are you still in Vermont, or what part are you from?
I'm in Vermont. Are you talking to me?
Yeah, I was just wondering where you were from.
Yeah, I'm from central Vermont, but Mike and I both work out of Stowe. Do you know the area?
No, unfortunately, no, I don't. I never been in that part of the country. Although I've been pretty fortunate because I used to travel quite a bit in my job, and I've been as far north, let's see, New England is the only place that I've been, and not for a long time. Just it was so cold when I got there.
Yeah,
I don't know how you guys can live there.
it comes in waves.
It was the most miserable day I ever had in my life. It was so
I
cold.
promise it's not always like that. And the scenery makes up for it for a lot of us, I think.
Yeah, that's what they tell me, but I tell you, it's and then I'm here in California, it was 80 degrees, and when I get there, it was like minus 80 wind factor or something like that. It was just and of course I just had a suit, like a very light suit. And when I got to the airport, I was, oh my God, it was so cold.
The good thing about cold weather, though, is you can always layer on for it. There are ways.
I never run so fast from the airport to the taxi. Since I'm here and everybody's quiet, I'd love to work with you guys. If you have any clients that you want to refer, I paid 30% referral fees. So maybe if you'd like to work with me here in the West, if you have any clients, I'd love to work with you guys.
Where in California do you live, Roland?
I live north of Los Angeles. I'm about 45 minutes north, and it's called Valencia, California. It's a suburb of LA. Well, it used to be a suburb. Now it's everything together. There's so many people here. Michael, are you also from Vermont?
Oh, me? No, I'm from Newburyport, Mass.
How far is that from Vermont?
About 3.5 hours. I used to travel to Vermont a lot, to Burlington and to on Route 4 by Keachie, White River Junction through Killington. Vermont's a great state.
My wife's name is O'Connor.
Oh,
So it's kind of a little Irish there.
yeah, all through my life, you always get mixed up with the O'Connells and the O'Connors and the McDonald's. You get called all different things. And throw in the apostrophe in there. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. So there's always some confusion with that, with the name. I have a good friend the next street over. It's an O'Connor.
There are a whole bunch. I'm from Spain, from the northern part of Spain, and my name is Izquierdo, last name, and there are not too many of them. But in the last year, I have found, people that sometimes I communicate on Facebook overseas, and I found out that there's a lot of them.
Oh, that's great.
Not really sure if we're related, but I'm sure, there's got to be something around there.
Yeah.
Hi guys, we're back. As we start to come back, I'm going to gently nudge people to turn on their cameras again. I like to see who I'm talking to. All right, let's get started. So prepare. Does somebody want to read the slide?
I'll read it if you want.
Yes,
Prepare,
please.
know your goal, know your client, think ahead, set clear expectations, be informed, obey the laws, and know the documents inside and out.
Yeah, that last one's a good one. Who practices reading through the documents? Your state documents, your purchase and sales contract, the contract language. Who practices that? Nobody practices that.
If you don't, you should.
Yeah, exactly. It says the contract class teacher. Yeah, so again, guys, this is all just going to be really important for you to continue to gain confidence, is knowing the material that you're presenting, knowing your client, knowing the goals, thinking ahead, anticipating needs, and then setting clear expectations. So this goes to everyone in real estate, creating those boundaries. And Mike was talking earlier about, making sure that you're present with your friends, your family, and all of those things. As much as people think we work 24/7, we should not work 24/7. Even if we do work 24/7, we probably should not work 24/7, because that's not in the interest of our clients, right? So making sure that you're setting clear expectations. Hey, I'm not going to be free between 3 and 5 p.m. or whatever it is. Creating those boundaries and setting aside that time that your clients know, and then also sticking to those. This is where your time blocking is going to come into play, is making sure that you're time blocking, keeping promises to yourself, keeping those promises to your clients, and setting those expectations. Being informed. Does anybody look at their state or board website every single day? Who does that? Besides me. Anybody?
Roland put his hand up. He's always checking in on his
Okay.
board.
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. So that's the biggest thing, is just being informed of what's kind of going on in the area, because so many people are going to come in and say, what is the market doing? Are we in a bubble? You know, these are common questions that we get every single day. So making sure that you're informed with what's going on in the real estate market, what's going on with real estate laws. This is going to be a big thing as we transition maybe parties or leaders within our country. So just making sure you're informed with state and national guidelines. So from David White said, check the, so I know that, you know, Vermont has the Vermont Association of Realtors. We have a board site, there are state sites. So whatever your local resource is going to be, just make sure, you know, you're checking in on that regularly, whether it's once a week, once a day, whatever it is. And then checking the MLS, guys. Like, if you're not looking at the MLS every single day to know what our current inventory is, what's gone under contract, how many days on market there is, just looking at the general stats, because so many people are going to ask you these questions. And then you can say, you know, when people ask you, do you think this is a good price for this home? Then you can follow up with saying, well, as of, you know, this morning, there are, you know, 27 active listings in this area or on this street, whatever it is. Making sure that you have that information in your toolbox every single day is going to add to your confidence and to your validity.
One of the
always
things
make
too,
sure that-
sorry to follow up on that. One of the things that I always find it is so important when we're doing this, when just for that small example that Christiana gave, when she says you have X amount of properties on the market, people are blown away that you know that. They can't believe. I mean, I had this conversation on Monday night with a friend, and she asked me how the Stowe market was. And I told her literally straight up, I said, there's 27 single family homes on the market today. And I knew that because I looked at it that morning. My market is Stowe. That's where I focus my energies on when I'm selling properties. And she couldn't believe I knew how many houses were on the market that day. And I said, what's interesting is this time last year, we had 5 or 6. So think of that difference in the marketplace. We have 27 now. Normally, in a normal year, we have about 60. Any given day, 60 homes. And being informed and knowing what's happening in the marketplace, you need to be the expert in your specific market. And that's what Christiana's getting at. Like, let's check out those. You should have a list of websites you go to every morning. Go to your state association, look at the data that they have up there. You probably don't need to do it every morning in the state association, but you need to be looking at the MLS every day. Normally the states only post it once a week. That's why I say that. But know what those data points are and be informed.
Yeah. Anybody else?
I just want to interject from the assistant side as well. I also check the MLS multiple times per day. Even though I am not actively, you know, writing contracts and all of that jazz, I am still keeping up with the market. I am a licensed executive assistant. So I do have like access to the MLS and everything. But it's always good because, like Mike said, like I have friends ask me about the market all the time. A lot of my friends live in Heinsberg. So I get a lot of questions like, what's the Heinsberg market like? And so now I just make it my business to know what the Heinsberg market is like, because they're always going to ask me. So I think it's a useful tool for not only agents, but assistants as well.
Well, not only that, if you're working with clients, you want to be informed if they had something new came out into the market, so you can show the particular property or so that's one of the reasons why I'm always on top of that. So, you know, I work with a large amount of buyers. So I'm always looking and I always keep in my mind what they're looking for and so on and so forth. So, and not only that, I'm pretty lucky, my board, they also put data and graphs and things like that. So I use that when I do my listing presentation. I use that, I incorporate some of that, how the market is doing, and some of those slides I incorporate into my presentation.
Yeah, absolutely. And just, what are we, guys? We're real estate agents. We are the market experts of our area. And even though the term expert is used really lightly and loosely in our, to other people, we know so much about the market. And that's quite literally our job, is to know exactly what is going on every single day. And people are going to ask you like, oh, this house I know sold a couple, years ago. What did that go for? You may not know the exact terms or the prices of these homes, but at least knowing what they're talking about, right? Because nothing is worse than having a client kind of say like, oh, I know this about this. You're going to have those people who know everything about everything, but make sure that you are just informed about kind of what's happening, what the market happening is. And that's, again, getting in relationship with people, right? I was on a phone call with another agent from a different area last night, and because I'm about to put my house on the market, and I was like, you've been doing this for a long time. She's been doing it for 44 years, and she knew every single thing about every house in the town that I'm selling in. And I was just so impressed with her. Sure, she's been doing it for 44 years, but it's literally just because she's in communication with people. She's knows kind of the town happening. She just kind of takes an interest in kind of being that local expert. And I left that conversation just being like, wow, that's really awesome. Like, I want to be like her. So that's, that is just part of being a real estate agent, is just kind of being that local expert, being informed on what's going on in the market, because everything's going to be changing every single day. And when you miss a couple of days on the MLS, you are going to realize how much you've missed. It's actually really crazy. Make sure, of course, that you are obeying the laws and being state compliant, and just know that make sure that you know kind of what you can and cannot do. And then, guys, know the documents inside and out. That is just going to be so huge. That's going to, again, give you confidence. Make sure you have validity in what you're doing, and that you're able to present that. If there are ever things that you don't understand, make sure you're asking those questions. Mike Hickey in our market center, he teaches a contract class every single week, and that's open to our market center. And make sure you know the language, make sure you know what is happening, what it's saying, and how to interpret that for clients, because a lot of it is a lot of legal talk. We are not trained generally to know how to read those documents. But again, it's our job to be the local expert in all things, and that includes knowing our documents.
I wonder if you guys
We
have
should know
broker
how to-
open. Do you guys in Vermont and all those areas out there, you normally have a once a week have a broker open?
Broken open
Yes.
open houses?
Yeah.
Well, broker open is, they go in caravans. Some
Yeah.
people do, and they go visit everything that is new listings or, something like that. And we have it here, and I take one day, real quickly and visit, as many houses as I can. Some recently it's just been, just a handful full. Now it's getting a little bit more crowded, but I find that really helpful, because you know what's available, and you've been there, you already looked at it. And so when clients come up, you say, yeah, I'm very familiar with that area, and so on and so forth.
That's huge to be able to say to a client, yes, I've been in that property. So many
Yeah.
times when people call on the phone and say, are you familiar with that property? And if you have the ability to say, yeah, I was just at a broker open house and I got to see the property, it's big for clients. They have a good comfort level there.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you guys are just starting out, I remember when I first started in real estate, I would go through doors. Like I would just schedule showings for myself. Because especially if there are multiple houses within one neighborhood, there's going to, people are just going to ask about that. That's what I mean by anticipating needs, anticipating what your clients are going to ask. And the more you do this, the more you'll be able to anticipate kind of the questions that you're going to get, and it will become second nature because you're going to get a lot of the same questions. People are going to have the same concerns. As your career evolves, you're going to just be more comfortable in what is coming at you, and there's going to be less fear attached to that. But in order to get ahead of that curve, it's putting yourself in those situations and kind of knowing your overall kind of like what you're working with, right? So while we're preparing, we want to ask the right questions. We want to provide you with the points you will negotiate on, provides insight on where you and your client will have leverage. So again, continue to lead with curiosity, ask those questions, ask deeper questions, making sure you're setting clear expectations. And this isn't just about, yeah, so Stephen Hatch just popped on. He said, so you can schedule a showing just for yourself without having a client with you. Yes, I know in the state of Vermont, you can. I can, again, only speak to that. But yes, that's exactly it. Is that if you're scheduling a showing, you can absolutely do that. I always say to try to find like vacant houses so we're not kicking sellers out if you can, or, going to open houses by yourself. That's okay. Going to broker opens by yourself. That's okay. Making sure you're just getting through the door is going to provide a lot of value to you, and you're just going to get more comfortable with, as you get into more houses, you're going to kind of know where the light switches are in every single room, or you're going to know, generally speaking, where the panel boxes, whatever it is, you're just going to get more comfortable with that the more houses and the more doors you walk through. And allows you to get to know your client and their goal. So again, leading with curiosity, guys, making sure that you know what their client's goal is, asking those questions. Why are they moving? Do they need to upsize because they have a growing family, or are they downsizing because maybe they're a widower now and they lost their significant other, right? Like making sure you understand what you're working with will allow you to represent them and advise them in those best ways. And again, it will help you learn what that win-win situation is. Any ahas or anything from that slide?
Yeah, and you get to
Yeah,
meet, other agents. That way when you submit a offer, they know who you are. So
Yes.
really, that's why to me it's important to meet other agents. So if you receive multiple offers, most likely people are going to favor the person that they know.
Yeah,
Well,
That's
absolutely,
a big
guys.
point, Roland. It's one of the reasons why we encourage all of our agents to get involved on the board levels, go to the mixers, go to the events, go to classes that your local boards are offering, so that you get to meet other agents. I mean, it's so important.
it seems like a lot of sort of informal negotiations are taking place just with the questions that you're dealing with in the other agent. You can get a lot out there, a lot of information, and that is sort of, like I said, an informal way of negotiating before even the offer goes in.
Absolutely, guys. And one of the biggest things that you can do, one of the most, especially to prepare yourself for, let's say, a seller consultation where they, are interviewing you, call the other agents who have sold the other houses in the other neighborhood and, for those comps. Ask the questions, what was the activity like on this house? So you can walk into that seller's appointment or that listing appointment with really good idea and clear ideas, because those sellers are also going to ask you those questions. Hey, what did this house sell for? Hey, I saw a lot of activity. What happened here? Make sure you're in communication and in relationship. Your job is to be in relationship with other people around your, in other brokerages, within your brokerage. Agents, this is a networking job. As people like to say, this is a contact sport where we need to be belly to belly with people and making sure we're having those conversations. There is no substitute for a phone conversation. People don't know how to read you, who you are, or, with just an email or a text message. And it's really easy to get away from that, but picking up the phone and saying, hey, can I ask you a few questions about this? Again, when I had that 45-minute conversation with that agent yesterday, I got so much value from her, just because one, she's been around for a while, but also like she just exemplifies exactly what I want to be in 44 years, right? Like it's making sure, and she was just so open with information, and that just felt really, really good to know that, and she, whatever, you can just get so much information by just having a conversation, by, just talking on the phone with people, because you're going to get more information than you even went there for. And that's really cool. So again, leading with curiosity, open-ended questions, and questions that have unlimited response options. So don't just say like, hey, how was your day? Really make sure that you are being thoughtful with your questions when you're asking people to figure out what they want and what they need out of this transaction. At a basic level, there are two types of questions. There's open-ended questions and there's closed-ended questions. And open-ended questions are something like, what is some additional information I should know? That's a really good one. If you don't know where to go, you can say, what is some additional information that I should know? And what is important to you about closing in X amount of days? Find out what their motivation is, right? And then how do you feel about that? And then sit with that, guys, because a lot of people are going to sit there and be like, oh, I don't know. Sit with that. Silence is powerful. And then people will be like, especially when you ask somebody how they feel about it, they will open up to you. And that's where you're going to be able to find really good, solid nuggets of information. Some closed-ended questions that expect a specific response, yes or no, or one word questions. This isn't necessarily like an interview, right? Like when you are going into a buyer's appointment, listing appointment, whatever it is, any sort of situation, you want people to get to know you, but more importantly, you want to get to know these other people, find out what their pain points are, find out what they're excited about, and really try to formulate a plan based off of what their wants and needs are. You have to sell your home by a specific date. Some people will say, no, I don't know. I don't really need to do, whatever. And then you can kind of sit with that as well. You will get information out of people. Do you have any other offers? Making sure you're in communication with the other agent on the other side, asking those questions is going to be huge, because you don't know what you don't know until you don't know it. And so many people are going to come to you and say, if they lost an offer, why did they lose the offer? Call that agent. Why did that happen? What could I have done better? That's a really good question to ask in a multiple offer situation. And then if you're working with a seller, you can say, what is the bottom line price you would like to consider? After all fees, after all, all of these things, what is that price? Those are closed-ended questions. Does anybody have any ahas from that one?
Yeah, Brian the other day mentioned something about when you do an open house to do something different. And I kind of copy his milk and cookies. Oh my God, I never realized how many people were interested in milk and cookies. I sent out about, I think I sent about 1,000 emails, and I got about 25 people signing in for milk and cookies this weekend.
Yeah. How simple is that? Who
Off
knew?
the shelf Chips Ahoy, or are you making your own?
No, I'm going to make it Oreos. And
You're gonna make
Oreos.
Oreos?
With milk?
the
Just so you know, I
original.
would come for regular out of the package Oreos, doubled stuffs.
Who doesn't? I mean, we grew up with that, So this weekend, guys come to my open house. There will be cookies and milk.
2% milk. That's important.
I didn't even say it was an open house. I just said, come for free cookies and milk. And I got that from Brian. He was one of the speakers, I think about four lessons back. So if anybody know Brian, give him my high five on that. It worked great.
That is amazing. We'll definitely tell him. And then we have a pro tip from Steven saying, get the Costco cookies. They're great. Can confirm Costco cookies are the best. All right, so let's dig into some specific questions that can help you learn about your client's needs and create a focus for the negotiation. Some questions would be, what would happen if? Helps you anticipate the next steps of the negotiation. What would happen? So I always ask my buyers, what would happen if they don't accept this offer? And then you'll get a lot of just intel from your clients, answering that question. And then why is this important to you? Digging into the emotion of why people are doing what they're doing. That's going to be really huge going forward. And, you are coming from a place of care, right? Like you care about these people, you want to do what's best for them. And these are some things that people ask when you care about somebody, right? Like, why is this important to you? Understanding what their motivation is, where they're coming from, and what they need to happen can be all answered with just that one question. That's huge. So let's see how this works in a real life setting with a quick role play. Is everybody down for that?
Who are you role playing with?
Do you want to role play, Mike?
I can do it, but we should try to see if someone else would be willing to do it.
Yeah, agreed.
Maybe Michael O'Donnell.
Sure, I'll do it.
Awesome. Mike, do you want to lead it?
I think I'd rather be the client.
You want to be the client? Okay. All right. So we will, Michael Hickey, do you want to go with the role play?
Yeah, give me the background. What do you want to do?
So we are just trying to figure out, we're presenting an offer. You're trying to figure out what the buyer's needs are. You're representing the buyer. And Michael O'Donnell will be the client. And basically we're in a multiple offer situation. Everything's getting really heated. Let's go from there.
Fantastic. Michael, how are you?
Good, and you?
Great. We need to make this offer, and there are multiple offers coming in. The listing agent said there's some super competitive offers. How are you guys feeling about putting in an offer?
I think we're ready to put in an offer.
You guys are ready to go?
Yeah.
So what are some of the concerns that you have? I mean, do you want to put in a home inspection contingency? Do you need to add a financial contingency? What do you have going on here?
Well, I think the home inspection is important. I'd want that. As you know, I also wanted a 2-car garage. The financing, I think we're all set on that. So.
Okay. So is it going to be a cash offer?
No. We got pre-approved.
Not going to be a cash offer.
No. We got pre-approved
Okay,
for
so we need
480.
Okay, so you're pre-approved for 480. We need to keep the financial contingency in there. And how do you want to handle the home inspection? Do you want it to be contingent on the offer? Or would it be okay if we kept it just for your information only?
No, I'd like it to be contingent upon the offer. I want to know if there's some serious flaws with the house. I don't want to waive it.
Okay, that's great. I do want you to understand that there is multiple offers in there. So we want to come forward with the best possible offer with a financial contingency. We need to make that as a contingency for sure. And then if you want to do the home inspection as well, I just want you to understand that that isn't going to be the best offer that they're going to have if they have multiple offers in the pool here.
Okay, I still think the home inspection is important. I know some people have had issues
Okay.
with termites, structural issues in the house, and that could be very costly. So I do want to keep that.
Okay, sounds good. We'll put together that offer.
Okay, thank you.
Christian, I hope that helped.
Well, I think one of the things, Mike, you could have done is why is a home inspection important to you? Right. And we obviously know why a home inspection is, why it's important, but why is it important to the client? You know, do they not know any, is this their first house? You know, anything like that just opens up the floodgates to why is this important to you? And then you could also ask that question. You could also incorporate what would happen if you didn't have a home inspection? What's the worst case scenario? Obviously, the house could fall down, you know, whatever that is, but what would happen if? And then we could also ask the question, what would happen if you lost this home because we had a home inspection contingency? You know, find out what their pain points are and what their motivation is. If they're like, oh, that's okay, I'm okay with that, then you kind of know that maybe they're not, you can kind of find out what their motivation is in that point, right? So let's go to I think we're kind of behind a little bit. So we're not going to do this unless anybody wants to, but we can go to the next page here. Yeah. Yeah, so again, just leading with curiosity, guys, acknowledge and affirm common ground. So find out what you can agree on and what those situations are. Make sure you're asking, you know, the question, am I understanding this correctly? Making sure that you are truly understanding what those clients are looking for and if you are hearing them accurately. Because a lot of people will kind of come into you and say, no, you're not understanding. Okay, cool. Help me understand more. Ask what and how questions. So again, those open-ended questions, and know that positioning is a process. People are not always going to have a lot of the, you know, buyers are emotional, sellers are logical. I say this all the time. So it's really understanding their wants and their needs and where their position is within this process. And then also something is really powerful, guys, is knowing when to walk away. Sometimes there are some things that just can't be done, but also making sure that you are standing firm to those Y4C2Ts. Sometimes the win-win is walking away. You know, even though maybe that is the win-win, and making sure that you're staying integral to what you're doing and maintaining that integrity of doing the hard things even when it's hard, or doing the right things even when it's hard. And then let's go to the next one. I think
Before you move on, Christian, I think,
yeah, go
Christian,
for it.
I think David has a question. David White has a question. Has his
Oh
hand up.
yeah, what's up?
His
would you
virtual
mind
hand.
Would you mind going back to the previous slide, even though you didn't go over it? I want to take a quick screenshot. I only need like 8 seconds or less. Do you
Yeah,
mind?
no, you're
Okay,
fine.
right there.
Go
Thank you
back,
so
go
much.
ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, I'll be right there. Give me a second. 3.
Oh, actually, let's go over this because this is really important. Yeah, best practices for when presenting offer. Who has presented? I know a lot of you are new. Who just recently presented their very first offer? Anybody?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Who just presented within the last couple of months who presented the very first offer recently? Okay. Even if you have presented multiple offers, and this is still really important to create a system for presenting these offers. So best practices when presenting that offer, calling the other agent, letting them know there's an offer in their inbox, letting them know the terms of the offer. I always like to also, or presenting an offer, as I leave the that my buyers are going to be presenting an offer or submitting an offer, call the agent and I say, we're going to be presenting an offer, be on the lookout for that. Just wanting to get a little bit of intel of, do you have any offers? How many offers do you have? What, if any, can you tell me about those offers? Sometimes they can tell you, sometimes they can't. And then also find out what's important to sellers, find out where they're going. A lot of buyers will ask, where are the sellers? Why are they selling? You know, asking those questions, anticipating the needs for those buyers. But when you do present that offer, make sure you're calling the other agent. prepping them, they have a voice to the name, you put up in their inbox and their phone a couple times already, they know who you are. You're creating, establishing that relationship. Pay attention to nonverbal cues like pauses, voice qualities. Guys, this is a round 360 approach to being a real estate agent, and this is so important. Back when we first started this class this morning, I said, you know, when you walk through houses with buyers, you will pick up on things that you don't even realize you pick up on. You know, some people will say, oh, I really love this sink, or I really love these fixtures. Oh, I really hate the carpet in the bathroom. There are going to be things that you're going to find, right? So pay attention to those nonverbal cues. And then keep quiet once you present an offer. One of the worst things you can do is blow up a a seller's agent's inbox by being like, have you heard yet? Have you heard yet? Have you heard yet? You know, the squeaky wheel gets the oil, but also you want to make sure that you are just maintaining and understanding that we're all super busy, right? It's fine to check in, but make sure that you are just being professional about it. Listen carefully to what's important to the other party. Again, this goes back to asking that question, what's important to the sellers? Where are they going? What would make this so easy for them? Stay calm and relaxed. Presenting an offer, if you've ever bought or sold property before, can be really nerve-wracking for people. Validate their fears, validate their concerns, but let them know, let your buyer sellers know this is part of the process and this is very normal. And what they're feeling is really normal, right? Like, this is a really emotional thing for people. And then focus on the customer's needs, making sure that you are, you know, if they have to be under contract in a week, make sure you know that, you know, that's why you're offering those open-ended questions. Focus on what they need, and then give your offer the best chance. How do we give the offer the best chance? Who has tips for winning offers?
I know something that we saw a lot in the past that we're starting to see less of now that the market is kind of catching up is appraisal bridges.
Yeah.
I've seen a ton of appraisal bridges. Basically, you know, as long as the property appraises for this amount, the buyers are willing to basically pay the difference up to a certain amount. And I've seen that win offers multiple times. But you also need to make sure that your buyers represent that they have the funds in order to cover that gap, because you don't want to get them into a pickle. So I would say make sure that your clients understand what an appraisal bridge is and make sure that they are in a financial situation to put an appraisal bridge into effect.
Well, I use that part for my benefit. When I put an offer, I said, we'll pay up to appraised value. So let's say, for example, you're selling a property for 200,000 and and I put an offer for 180, but the property comes at 150. It's in the contract that I only pay up to the 150. So I came out with a higher value, but in the clause says I pay up to, you know, appraised value. And a lot of times I get the offer because I offer more than what is, you know, that they were asking for, or, you know, whatever. And and the appraisal comes way below, and there's in the contract, so they can't get out.
Yeah, what are some things you can do outside of terms? Say you're presenting a tough offer. You are you have every contingency imaginable. You have a contingent home sale, you have a home inspection, you have financing, you have appraisal, you have all of the contingencies. What can you do outside of the terms of the offer to give your offer the best chance? David, go ahead.
Susan yesterday had shared something, and she called it like a client love letter, and obviously not the one that people used to do, talking about the families, you know, the kids and all that. But she's gonna send me those details, but it's something about, hey, my clients really fell in love with your house. They're so excited to be moving into the neighborhood. They're pre-qualified and their lender has gone over every detail ahead of time. So, their papers are squeaky clean. I'm kind of making that up because I haven't practiced it yet.
David, I was going to say the same thing. Love letters, as you guys all know, are sort of no-nos from the client, but there's nothing that says that we can't sort of present our client's position in an email when you're presenting the offer to the listing agent, and just give the highlights of it. You don't want to get into details of, like you say, their familiar status or any protected class. You don't want to talk in those kind of terms. But if you speak in general terms and just make a brief list that, like you're pointing out, they're very well qualified. They love this neighborhood. Maybe they, have friends that live in this neighborhood. They want to be a part of this. They're excited about, the changes that you've made to the home, blah, 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 blah. So the love letters are a major issue right now in terms of fair housing. But we can give a summary of who our clients are in advance when presenting the offers. And it's done very, very well and effectively.
Agreed. Jason, you can see your hands up.
Can anyone take a moment to elaborate on Roland's strategy and how it could or could not work?
Roland's strategy as far as, go ahead.
So Roland just gave a scenario. He said what he does with his offer is that he will write in, so he'll come in, forgive me, Roland, a little bit deceptively. So he'll come in high to win, but say that we'll only pay up to the appraised value and get the contract signed. Now I see all kinds of holes in that as far as like the back end of the transaction. Like what that's going to cause on the buyer side, how they're going to feel about having made that decision, so I'd like to I'd like to roundtable that, because I see how it could be effective to win. But what are the drawbacks? I'm always thinking about the fallout. So I'd love to hear, because I like it a lot, but it doesn't feel perfect. So I want to hear from you guys about that. And Roland, thank you for sharing that, because I really like it, but I want to know more.
Yeah, appraisal gaps and appraisal bridges are really, they've been the focal point over the last couple of years for offers, right? So basically the basic situation is, I always refer to market value. People are like, what is the fair market value on a property? Well, you could get the bank's opinion on the value, but at the end of the day, there's actually no formula for a market value, right? It's only about what the buyer is willing to pay for a property. And sometimes it's going to be above appraised value. They don't care. They want it so much. So again, that's why you're asking these questions around, why is this home important and what is this home worth to you? And that's going to be a really important thing, because they're like, even if this comes in, say the house is $500,000, it appraises at $500,000, they have an offer in for $550,000. And if they're willing to pay that and they're not going to be upset about paying that, that's what you do, right? Like, assuming they can form that bridge, assuming they have the cash to close on that. And I love this conversation, because it's going to be a big situation. But it's truly just, I always tell my buyers, make an offer that you are comfortable with, but you're not going to be upset over if you lose it, if we're going above asking price, right? Figure out what their motivation is, and you are going to be able to consult them adequately. There's holes everywhere, guys. There's going to be holes in every single contract with everything that you do. Who else has something?
Jason,
my
did that
point-
help?
My point was,
Not really.
when
Roland,
you,
tell me more.
okay, I think I can answer that a little more direct. When you have a competitive offers and you have multiple offers, and then you only have X amount of dollars to work with. A lot of times, agents don't read exactly what you put on the contract. and I'm not trying to be deceiving, but I'm fighting for my client. I would put that on the, that I'll pay X amount of dollars, but if it's appraised for that amount, and then we go ahead with a transaction. It's always on the other end of the transaction, you can say, no, I won't take that, remove that contingency, which I've done before, but at least it gives me a little more leverage when you see other similar offers. So it gives you a little more leverage that, yeah, I'm willing to do that, but if it doesn't perform at this number, then I will go for whatever. And then you can always say, no, remove that contingency because we're not willing to take your offer if that, but at least we're talking about it. And that's why, there's ways to do contracts that it benefit you, or, for example, one of the things that a lot of time happens is they don't disclose. You have within 7 days to disclose certain items, and you don't do it. And so I write them a nice little love letter. Hey, you haven't performed, so you're supposed to do this, and you didn't do it. And then I said that's going to cost you, and it could happen or not happen, but at least you have a little more leverage to do that. And I tried to use contracts for that purpose, just to leverage my offers.
Are we saying that because we have a rough idea just based on comps in the area and what we've run, based on data, like we kind of have a rough idea around where it might appraise? So
Yes.
that way, so we use a strategy where we come in higher based on, and knowing that it will likely appraise here, but we come in here to win the offer, knowing that when we go through the appraisal,
It's not going to come at that amount.
right?
I am in the market which people are going $80,000, $90,000 above market value, and I would say a good portion of that falls through because it doesn't appraise, and they don't have the amount of dollars to do that. So if you were to write an offer like I said to you, I go, Jason, you have to remove that contingency of appraising at that value because I know it's overpriced. If your clients are willing to pay for a property that is overpriced, and then we can talk. But a lot of times, and I read the contract really careful too. But a lot of people don't. A lot of people present that and say, hey, this guy, has a strong client, and they forget or didn't quite understood, the contingency upon appraised value.
So I think we're talking about two different things here, guys. So Roland's talking about adding an appraisal contingency to a contract. And what he's saying is that he's going to throw the appraisal contingency in there to make sure that he's protecting his client's interest. So if it doesn't get above, so if they're offering above and it doesn't get there, his client has the option of pulling out. Is that correct, Roland?
That's number one, but also my offer, when you look at it, it's going to be stronger because the numbers are stronger.
Right. That's what I saw.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And then the other part of it, what the other part of the conversation, Jason, is we're talking about an appraisal clause, an appraisal gap, or an appraisal bridge clause. And those two things are, and if you know what they are, you can just say, Mike, I know, don't need to continue to go here, but an appraisal gap is, an appraisal gap is something that we've been using recently because most people want to, they're in love with this house. They definitely want to get it. And they're willing to purchase the house with what we would consider to be negative equity. So in a seller's market, an appraisal gap or an appraisal bridge is a strategy to outbid somebody else that won't use that tactic in there. So you literally will say, we're willing to pay, $15,000, $50,000, whatever it is, to bridge the gap to the appraisal. And my opinion is they're really, really high risk. And personally, as a personal note, I probably would never purchase a home if I was going to end up having negative equity.
I'm with you. I would, I even tell my clients that, why would you want to do that? You know, it's,
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense. You make money in real estate when you buy, not when you sell. If you got it at a good price, you made money when you purchase.
That's a
Because
great point, Roland. That's a great point. You make the money when you're buying, not when you're selling. You're losing equity when you're selling a property. All right, I'll shut up.
How does the financing work in the negative equity? What, they have to get, I mean, most places probably wouldn't want to give you a loan for something above what, if the house is appraised at.
Yeah, usually they're with cash offers, Michael.
Okay.
Christiana,
No, this is all really good. Thanks for clearing that up. Mike is the president of the Vermont Association of Realtors, so he's really good when
means
it comes to
nothing.
contract. Yeah.
Means
But
nothing.
anyway, yeah.
David asked in the chat about escalation clauses. Can you chat a little bit about
Yeah.
escalation clauses?
Yeah. Does everyone know what an escalation clause is? Okay, so we'll go quickly over an escalation clause. So an escalation clause is essentially you have an offer on a property and you agree, you submit the offer with the base price of what they're willing to pay. Then you add an escalation clause, meaning that you are willing to escalate your offer above the next bona fide written offer, X amount of dollars up to a certain amount of dollars. So say you're willing to pay $1,000, $2,000, $5,000 over the next highest offer, but there's also a cap at that. So say your base price is $500,000, but you're escalating your clause up to $550,000, then that would be your cap. So if somebody comes in with a next highest offer of $525,000, your offer is then escalated to $530,000 if it's $5,000 above the next highest offer. So you can couple that with an appraisal situation. So meaning that the house still has to, that appraisal contingency, if it's financed, where the house would have to appraise at or above contract price, whatever that contract price is. So if the offer of if the escalation clause has been activated at that point and you're now under contract for $530,000, the appraisal will have to come in at $530,000 or higher. Right. But if you put the appraisal gap in addition to the escalation clause, then at that point you are willing to say, we know this house is only listed at $500,000. We are willing to escalate up to whatever that dollar amount is. We are also willing to cover with cash what that gap of, whatever that appraisal gap is, not to exceed $530,000. That's how I have always written them. So that way, if the price, say your appraisal gap is $10,000, the appraisal comes back at $525,000, your buyers are not on the hook to pay $535,000, right? It caps at $530,000, what you're under contract for. Does that make sense? Yes, cool. Anything else from this?
So
All
thank
right.
you for those 8 seconds so I could do the screenshot. That's all I needed.
No,
Thank you
you're
so much.
good. As long as everyone got that. Awesome, cool. Let's keep going. Okay, yeah, let's go through. Oh, from Emily, I finally understand escalation clause now. Thank you. Escalation clauses are so funky, you guys, and it's really true that we've gotten, this goes back to, again, to the very beginning of our class, because we have had to get really creative about what we've done. So, and how we approach offers. And so a lot of this stuff really hasn't come into play until the last couple of years. So, because at the last, we really want to, when you have a fiduciary responsibility to your clients, it's especially in a really hot and heavy seller's market, it's so hard to adequately represent your clients to the best of their ability, your buyers to the best of your abilities. So making sure that, again, you understand the contracts inside and out, making sure you're informed on what you're doing, what your buyers are doing, what the implications are of those choices, and making sure that everyone is just thoroughly educated on what they're doing. You want to empower your clients, right? You want to empower them to make the best decisions for themselves, and you can't make the best decisions for themselves if you're not fully educated on the entire situation. Does that make sense? Okay, David in the chat said, what are you seeing in your area for a good number for escalations? Are you talking about what the escalation amount is, or?
That part, like obviously this isn't eBay where you're going up by increments. I should have said increments by 5 cents. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, okay. It really depends. In Vermont, there's different counties and they can be vastly different. I think it really just depends on what you're seeing in your market. So I know, like, for instance, Cambridge, Vermont's going to be very different. Stowe, Vermont, even though they're neighboring towns, I think that is really going to indicate what the increments are. In Stowe, you're dealing with a lot of luxury $1 million plus properties. So that increment's going to change, where Cambridge is going to be very different. You're going to be well into, the $300,000 to $500,000 range. So really making sure your areas, what you're seeing, and what the dollar amounts are is going to play a really big role. I also see larger deposits, guys. I know we're kind of off track, but I see larger deposits. This is a really good thing to do. Generally speaking, before pandemic, before a lot of this, it was the general rule, especially for our area, was 1% of the contract price was the earnest money deposit. That has since exploded, and making sure that you have sometimes a higher deposit can really show the sellers that the buyers are serious, they're intentional about what they're doing, and they have the cash to do that. But then you're also showing people, your buyers, that, okay, you can show this, you're a little bit more cash heavy, that's good for you. But you're not throwing every single contingency out the window either, right? So making sure that they're educated on what their rights are, what their responsibilities are, when they can get that deposit back, when they get it back, all of those things. Education's key. Okay. Any ahas from any of that? Who's got what? We have just a couple minutes left for the day, so I want to make sure. Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
Something that I never heard about until I had my first closing is making sure there's enough deposit collected to cover the commission payout more rapidly. So the market center is like, well, we need to have this much money in escrow before we can pay out X commission. So it would have, I mean, it's not very much of a delay, but it would have, but if I had collected a little bit more money on the deposit, which I could have, which it was available, it would have affected the payout on the back end. You guys speak to that a little bit? Because I've never heard of it. I've never heard it said in any training I've ever sat in, because we're always thinking about the client. But then what about, but it makes me think, how much what's the payout on the back end to both sides? And then how much should I really collect? And how much are they willing to put up as a thought as well?
Yeah, and I think it also depends, so basically what he's talking about, guys, is whether or not your market center is going to retain the deposit at closing. And Mike, maybe you can speak a little bit more to this, but this is really, Mike, do you have opinions or information?
Yeah, I do. I have a lot of opinions, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. As you know, I have tons of opinions when it comes to these commission kind of things, and it just comes to contracts. So in the state of Vermont, it's a practice now that we actually do that we retain the commission. And you're correct, Jason. If you if the commission ends up being $10,000 and there's a $10,000 escrow deposit, can your market center actually retain that? Yes, they can. But it's a state by state issue. In the state of Vermont, it doesn't afford to do that in the contract. It doesn't exist anywhere in the contract. So if you think about it from a legal practice, some attorneys will say, no, that's against the law. You can't retain the escrow. The escrow actually is the seller's escrow deposit. It needs to actually go back to the seller or somehow get figured back into the seller side. It's become a practice here in Vermont lately that's how it's done, that we now retain the escrow deposit, whether it's the full or partial. And hopefully it's the full. Hopefully the deposit is enough to cover it. But depending on who the attorney is, we're an attorney state in Vermont. We don't, so most transactions are done through the attorneys. So some attorneys won't actually allow that because it's not afforded in the contract. So again, it goes down to knowing the contracts and how it's done. It is a practice now in the state of Vermont that's how we're doing it. I'm sure the forms committee that we have in Vermont will start taking that up because it's becoming more and more commonplace. I hope that helped. I'm not sure that it did. What state are you in, Jason?
Massachusetts.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the Massachusetts law is on that, but go through the contract and see if it's a part of the contract. That's what it all comes down to. But if your market center is encouraging you to get that so that you get paid quicker, I think you're right when you say my fiduciary responsibility is to my clients and not to myself. That's how you should look at everything, right? But this is sort of an advantage if the deposit is higher and it can be retained at the market center. It's a benefit to you. But you're correct that your fiduciary responsibility is to your client.
Thank you, Mike.
Well,
Pleasure.
also, I would add, in my state, we can actually retain that, but it normally have to go to litigation or arbitration, whatever you agree to, and anyway, it's kind of messy.
Yeah, in a nutshell, it's a little messy. So again, make sure that you are informed with your laws, obey the laws, know what best practices are, and ultimately just make sure that you are being compliant with state and local board laws and whatever that is. And each state's going to be very different. I know that Vermont is super different than California and especially very different than Massachusetts. So even though we're neighboring states, it's can be very, very different state to state. So just make sure you know what you're doing, you're being compliant, you're obeying state and local laws and guidelines. And ultimately just make sure to get clarification from your market center if you still don't know. Make sure you're talking with your productivity coach. Make sure you're talking with your leaders in your market center to make sure that you are fully understanding what you can and should do, and then also what best practices are. All right, so we just have a couple more minutes, like I said, guys. So let's just kind of scoot through this and yeah, so this is a really good one. Negotiation tips. Above all else, guys, we want to make sure that we're being professional. You are going to, real estate's kind of a small town, right? Like it's so important to make sure that you're being professional, that you're staying level-headed, that you're staying unemotional about things, because at the end of the day, you are going to have to work with your co-brokes again. Right. And if you are working with somebody for the very first time, that first impression is everything. So it's just really important that you maintain your professionalism, maintain a level head, and never respond emotionally. Keep the goal in mind, making sure that you are representing your clients to the best of your abilities, and what their end goal is. Pay attention to your communication and tone with everyone involved in a transaction. Make sure, again, this is just so important that you are, above all else, maintaining professionalism, maintaining a good tone of communication, and make sure that you are somebody that somebody's going to want to work with again. That's the biggest situation, is that we all have to play nicely in the sandbox. And if you work with somebody for the first time and it's a really bad transaction because of how you responded, because of how you, whatever, because of how you did your job, make sure that you can stand behind those actions going forward. Continually refer to your client's motivation when speaking with them. Bring it full circle to them. Remind them of why they're doing this. Over the last couple of years specifically, it got really kind of crazy with buyers losing out on multiple properties. And just make sure that you are bringing it back to them, of making sure that you're checking in with them and saying, are your goals still the same? Have they changed? What, if anything, has changed? Make sure you're checking in with them. Also, we're entering kind of a buyer's market, guys. So that's going to open up more opportunities for you to, even if they haven't bought a home in a couple of weeks, making sure you're maintaining communication with them and saying, hey, we haven't spoken in a while. Just wanted to make sure that your goals are still the same of buying a house in the next couple of months. Where are we at? Making sure you're keeping those lines of communication open. Don't reveal too much, listen more than you talk, and keep your client's motivation close. So that's just really, again, leading with curiosity, asking those open-ended questions, continuing to make sure that, if their wants and their needs are colliding and they're not really lining up, dig more into that. What does this look like? And just try to really understand your clients well, what their goals are, and find a way to get those. And don't be attached to the outcome. Guys, leave emotions at home. You can be emotional when you get home. You cannot be emotional here. This is quite literally why people hire you. You are the middle person. You are the person to exert the emotion out of the equation. And just know that you're going to find a way. It may not be this one, but make sure that you are not attached to the outcome. And this can also be said to prospecting too, right? Like, you can't overthink when you're prospecting for people. And a lot of people don't like to role play or have conversations or script practice or lead gen because they're anticipating the outcome. Don't get attached to that, guys. Make sure that you are doing what you can do in order to bring value. And every situation is a learning experience, because we can't anticipate that, right? Any ahas from that?
The biggest for me is keeping your emotions in check.
Yeah.
Keeping your emotions in check. I had a contract where I was the listing agent. We listed the house improperly as a 4-bedroom. It was an honest mistake. It was actually a 3-bedroom in the state of Vermont. Your bedroom count isn't what's physically in the house. It's based on what's under the ground in terms of the septic system. And the septic permit was a 3-bedroom and not a 4-bedroom. So we ended up having, I personally ended up having an agent, yelling and screaming at me on the phone about the fact that it was marketed incorrectly. And I told her that it was a Saturday morning. I was having coffee with my wife at like 7:30, 8 o'clock. And I said to her, look, we can have a conversation about this, but I'm not going to sit on the phone and have you yell at me. In the end, it's interesting though, the seller purchased the home 9 years earlier from her firm that she's the broker of, and they listed the house because we went back in the MLS and took a look at the old listing, and they marketed it as a 4-bedroom as well. So keep your emotions in check. Don't let it get carried away. Never get into an argument with another realtor, because you never know, like Christiana says, we got to work together. We got to play nice in the sandbox. You're going to have a transaction with that person a week later or 2 weeks later. So that relationship that me and this other agent had really it's never sort of mended back together again. And maybe I personally should go out and reach out to her and make that mend back. But her emotions got the best of her.
Yeah. No, I can't tell you how important it is. And people who have been in real estate a long time will really recognize the power of your relationships and the power of you maintaining your professionalism throughout everything. I always have, then there's part of the success system, guys, is going to be like making sure you're role playing, making sure that you have your role play partners, making sure that you're practicing this every single day. But what's really important, and I just saw in the chat that it's possible that a co-broke might actually share with their client that between your offer and another agent's offer, the co-broke might actually share that you were very easy to work with, or that you were very hard to work with. And that's why it's so important to maintain a good image, because that could ultimately affect your client's offer getting accepted. And those are like the unspoken things in the psychology of real estate, right? Because like so many times I've been presented with 20 offers. I've been representing the seller. And if it comes down to 2 people, if there's one agent I know that's going to be difficult to work with, it's not only going to be difficult for me, but it's likely going to make my sellers' lives hard too. So making sure that, and even if it's not there's so many different variables that go into getting an offer presented, but the one thing that you can consistently control is how you treat people. And that is just something that you can really take with you every single day. Like, were you good to these people? Were you a good human? Overall, were you easy to work with? And did you represent your clients adequately? And a lot of times when we get wrapped up in emotions and when we get wrapped up in the outcome of things, that's when we get fired up. But at the end of the day, it's not our job to be emotional about this. It's our job to represent our clients. It's our job to get to the finish line, win or no deal, and figure this out. And you can't solve problems when you're emotional. You just can't, right? People say, don't make decisions when you're emotional. And this is so true when it comes to building those relationships, and people are going to take that with you. Even if you don't work, somebody asked me, oh, have you worked with so-and-so? And I was like, yeah, 5 years ago, and it was terrible. That's my perception of that person. I don't like that I have that perception, but that's the reality of the situation. And we are able to form connections based off of how people make us feel. And we're going to remember those. So anyway, any other ahas or any other insights?
So I guess I would add in, I know the bold law, not verbatim, about you train your clients, right? How to work with you, something like that. I think that would apply to your co-brokes as well, right? The way you come across, the way you are. And come on, it's our business, right? Don't you want to enjoy it versus, I don't get all these yelling matches. Mike, I'm sure that was not enjoyable, especially at 7 in.
You teach people how to treat you. And that's exactly it, is like, if you are down here and somebody else is up here, like they are opening the door that they are allowing you to be up there also, but do you want to be? And it's vice versa. Like, we teach people how to treat us. And this goes to setting boundaries, setting expectations, and creating an environment where there's going to be professionalism around the board. I can't tell you how many times people have yelled at me, and all I can do, it takes every ounce inside of me to just sit there with it, be uncomfortable with it, let them know that it's not okay how they're treating you, and you're happy to have that conversation when emotions have died down. And that's okay. You're setting those expectations, you're setting those boundaries because you are a professional, right? And it's so important and this is going to go, the more you practice this, it's so easy when you see people who are treating other people poorly, especially in customer service. This is a service industry. It's important to teach people how to treat you, but it's also even more important to exemplify that in everything that you do. And I feel so strongly about this because there have been so many agents that I have worked with that are just like, why? There's no reason for this, right? At the end of the day, we both want to sell this house. We have the same goal here. How do we figure this out in a logical and concise manner that allows everyone to get what they need out of this? You don't have to like me. Not everyone's going to like me, and that's okay. But it's just, am I able to go to bed at night knowing that I did the right thing? I said the right things, and you may not, but it's just so important that your first impression is going to carry you through your entire career. David White, go ahead.
Who would generally yell at you? Would it be a client or another agent?
Oh, gosh,
Both?
everyone's yelled at me.
It is one of those things though that you do get into, and I think some of the, David, I'll let you go sorry, some of the agents think it has to be, a combative sort of, when we're in negotiations, they feel that it has to be combative because they are protecting their client's best interest. And it really doesn't need to be combative. You get more bees with honey, in my opinion, and you'd have more success.
Yeah.
Treat people the way you want to be treated.
Yeah.
Better yet, treat people the way you think they want to be treated.
This is a contact sport, not a combative sport. Right. So it's just so important to make sure that, to Mike's point, you're treating people, I always say I do business the way I would want business to be done with me. And I don't want people yelling at me. I don't, and this is a deeply personal situation. This is a deeply emotional thing. Like, I think some of the highest reasons why people buy or sell real estate is death, divorce, and upsizing or downsizing, right? Those are all really, really emotionally packed situations. And your job is to, when I first got into real estate, guys, there are so many things that really tugged on my heartstrings, and it was very hard for me because you kind of have to be a chameleon in any one of those situations. You could be coming from a death situation, going to a divorce situation, and then your third showing of the day is somebody who's buying their very first house, and they're super psyched about that. It's just about maintaining your professionalism throughout every single situation. Yeah, go ahead, David.
So it's got to be challenging. I know Lindsay has been in situations where people have raised their voice at her. I haven't had any calls yet. Have you ever considered, so here, Christiana, you're sharing these things with me, and like you are just like going ballistic. I click the phone, I immediately call you back and say, hey, Christiana, so sorry the phone cut off. You were sharing with me that your client wants to keep the washer and dryer. Is that correct? Could you go over that again? Is that just silly, or is it maybe a shift? Maybe I don't want to do that on a regular basis.
What a great strategy. I love that strategy. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
But immediately calling them back, right? Otherwise, you're just,
Yeah.
it could come across as, maybe they might realize, oh.
Yeah, it's that reset. It's a reset button.
Let's talk about a pattern interrupt, huh?
when
I
no one
absolutely love that
mentioned-
strategy, David. And thank you for sharing that, because I think the next time I'm going to do that. Hang up. Oops, sorry.
When Roland said Tony Robbins, that was one of the things he built his practice on. Pattern interrupt. People are so focused on how they're feeling right that second. I haven't tried it yet. I'll tell you how it works. Next, I'll sign up for Ignite again or some marketing with you guys, training.
Yeah, come to Vermont for our trainings.
Yeah.
We have 6 personal perspectives coming up, right, Christiana? When is 6 personal perspectives going to be offered in Vermont?
6 personal perspectives is going to be December 6th. We're super psyched about that. And yeah, feel free to, our market center is open. Even to we'll serve milk and cookies.
Roland will be there.
Chocolate chip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never
Where are you
thought
guys
of,
in
I
Vermont?
never thought of the negotiations between two realtors as being like an adversarial relationship, like 2 lawyers in court. I thought it was much more congenial than that. And, you'd think, because when you're ready to put an offer, you're pretty close in terms with the other realtor. I'm surprised that it degenerates into that.
Yeah, sometimes it does, right? I mean, it shouldn't
Yeah.
be that way. We should be more congenial. We should act professional. It's best for the profession to feel that way, and to act in that way. So.
Well, and the thing is we go through the code of ethics every year, right? So, the code of ethics may not specifically say treat people the way you want to be treated, but I mean, in not so many words, it's like, be ethical, be nice. At the
Yeah.
end of the day, just be a kind person.
Mhm. Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, that is all the time that we have today. Make sure that you are continuing your script practicing, your role play partners, and setting yourself up for success every single day. You should be striving to be just a little bit better, even if that means 5 more minutes of lead gen or whatever that is. Just make sure that you are staying consistent. We are always here for questions, comments, whatever you need. We are always a resource for you. Thanks so much for joining us today, and good luck. And as Brian Armstrong would say, go and slay those dragons. Thanks, guys. Have a
Thank
good
you.
day.
Thank you, Christiana.
You guys rock.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.